Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vehicle Addicts YouTube channel. Today I'm going to do a very detailed walkthrough for part 3 on everything that I've done to the car. So strap in for a long video. I'm going to be rambling a lot. Anyway, I might gloss over a few things that I recorded in a previous video because it's been, maybe a week and a half since I started. I did film a lot of GoPro footage of me actually working on the car. But you guys might ultimately not end up seeing that footage depending on how it turns out. If the audio is good, if it's not, how the video looks. So I wanted to actually film a detailed walkthrough with my phone. It makes it easier for me to edit, and then I'm able to get these videos out in a more consistent time frame. Because I shot a lot of footage with the GoPro, so I'm going to have to do a lot of editing. So just so that way you guys are aware. I'm hoping you guys do get to see that footage because then you guys can gain a little bit more trust in some of the work that I ended up doing to the car. But without further ado, let's dive into everything that I've done. We'll work our way from the front, go to the back, and go over some parts that I have, some issues I found, all that stuff. So without further ado. So as you guys can tell, I got the front bumper installed with the headlights and everything. You guys know about most of that stuff. So fog lights are in now with the brand new OEM Ford bezels. I do have some chrome machine screws that are holding it in. The ones that came from LMR were actually too small and they weren't tight enough to hold it in properly, so I used my chrome ones instead. And then the electrical pigtails are in the fog lights too, so they're ready to be wired up and ready to go. Next, we got the Zeus hood rails mounted on the car. One thing I do want to mention though is the back two well, I shouldn't say the back two, but the two right here and right here are very loose. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get those metal trim screw deals for like when you're installing into plastic. They give you those metal squares that you would screw into. You're going to have to put those behind the fender so that the screw actually screws into those and holds those rails on properly. There are screws in the middle, so there's one here, there's one here, here, and etc. So that rail is tight on there, but just so you guys know, there are two screws that were very loose. So I left them out so you wouldn't lose the bolts, and I have them in a box that I'll include with some hardware of the car. I do have to go through the parts bin and see if some of those rubber trims that were in there are for the actual hood portion, because then I can install the firewall, I don't know what you want to call it, seal or whatever. Anyway, moving on. I stole the Hydro Boost push rod out of my 01 convertible because when I went to the junkyard, every V6 I looked at, every Crown Vic and every F-150 didn't have Hydro Boost in it. I was hoping that I would find at least one Ford vehicle that might have had something that I could steal out of it, but none of them did. So I opted, instead of ordering another $200 Hydro Boost with a master cylinder, I would just instead steal the one out of my convertible for now, and then maybe later on down the road I'll convert the convertible to manual brakes. So Hydro Boost is completely installed now. I'm still waiting on the bushings with the retaining clip for the actual brake pedal. For now, I just have the pin inserted with a R-clip. So it is a little wobbly still because I don't have any of the plastic bushings that go in there to center it up and keep it tight. I do have the wiper cowl installed now with the wiper nozzles. They do have the rubber 90s installed on the bottom of them, but there's no hoses ran. And I wasn't too worried about that because obviously there's no wipers or anything to operate it anyway. So I just kind of wanted to cover up some of the holes and make it look a little better. The plastic trim deals that LMR gives you with the wiper cowl, they're the push pin style that has a rubber, or not a rubber, a plastic screw that screws into them and holds it in, weren't tight enough to actually hold this on. So I opted for some push pin style ones instead that you can just push in and hold it, and it makes it way more tight. It also has brand new metal clips on the tops. So yeah, it's held in there real good, so it doesn't move around at all. So just so you guys know that. Lastly, well, I shouldn't say lastly, but I'm still waiting on the S&S engineering bushings. They're supposed to be coming today so we can finish up the front brakes. I did install the rear brakes yesterday with my brother. So we got those Ford Focus calipers on with all new hardware and everything. I shot a little 1-minute video after I got the driver's side installed while my brother was doing the passenger side. So we'll insert that at the end of this video. Next, I removed all the plastic stickers, vinyl wrap on the top of the windshield, all that stuff. And then I completely cleaned all the windows. And I spent a lot of time on the front windshield because they didn't remove the windshield when they inserted the cage, which they should have. And I'll tell you guys why for a few reasons. Reason number one is if you remove the windshield, you can build the cage a lot tighter to the car so it looks a lot better and you have a lot more headroom. So not only would they have been able to get this bar a lot closer to your A-pillar, keep in mind that the trim panel is not in there, and I'll show you guys the trim panels later on why they're not in there. But they could have got this bar a lot closer to the A-pillar, and they could have pushed this bar a lot further forward so they didn't have to cut the dash out so much. And then that would have looked a lot better as well. And then not only that, but the hoop bar on the top, they could have got a lot closer to the actual roof of the car. And then when they painted the roll cage, they could have done a better job of painting it instead of just covering it up with a vinyl strip, because that's basically what they did. And then not only that, but they also removed the factory sunshade on the windshield and then just left all the glue residue on the backside. So they covered that up. So I spent a lot of time. Also, they had a lot of paint overspray on the windshield too because they didn't mask the window up very good. So I spent a lot of time cleaning the paint residue off, getting the glue residue off of the back side of the windshield, off of the front side of the windshield with the vinyl banner that they had on there. Cleaning the windows with all the vinyl residue off of the stickers. So I spent a lot of time cleaning this stuff and making it look good. One thing that I do want to mention though is there is one little tiny speck on the windshield that you should have filled at a window shop right there next to the rear view mirror. I installed the rear view mirror yesterday as well, so that's ready to go. And then moving farther back onto the passenger side, we got the mirror installed. I managed to pick one up from the scrapyard as well, from a 99 V6 convertible. And I replaced the actual rubber backing / mounting plate too, because that one looked like it was in better shape, so it'll actually seal the window a little better. I removed the door panels yesterday, and then I completely routed all the wiring and everything. I zipped up the tweeter one to make sure that those are real good. I did that on both the driver's side and the passenger side, and then cleaned all the panels inside and out, and then reinstalled them. I also installed these mirror trim panels that I got off of the V6 convertible. And then as you can see, the Mach Audio door panels / Mach Audio cars are different than the non-Mach Audios. But unfortunately, I only have the passenger side tweeter and I don't have the trim panel to cover that tweeter up. So I didn't think it was worth it to install the passenger side and not have the driver side. So I instead opted to put these panels on both driver and passenger side to cover up the bolts for the mirror, just to make it look a little bit better, but just be aware that there is that big gap in the door panel. So if you want to put the Mach Audio tweeters back in the car, feel free to do so, or you can leave it this way, you know, choice is yours. And then, as I mentioned in another video, we have the NRG stuff completely mounted to the car. I do recommend that you pull that short hub back off and install a longer bolt in it, because it only has about 3 threads of engagement with that NRG hub. So just so you guys know that. I did Loctite, well, I didn't Loctite that bolt, but I did blue Loctite all the other bolts for the NRG stuff. So you should still be able to get it out of the aluminum, no big deal. You might have to hit it a little bit with some heat just to make sure you don't strip nothing, but I did. It was a very light dab on everything, so it should be fine and should come out pretty easily. So just so you know that. Next, I pulled the entire trunk wiring harness out of that V6, just in case you guys would need it. I couldn't remember what the car had when I was there, so I opted to pull that out. You do actually have the bottom trunk wiring harness already ran, although there is a couple wires that were questionable that I pointed out in part 2. I did pull the third brake light harness off of that wiring harness, and I plugged it in and routed it all the way up the trunk with all your clips and everything, and that's all ready to go. So you now have lights and the actual license plate bulb portions, so that's good. One thing I do want to note though is the third brake light is different in the GTs and the V6s than it is in the 0304 Cobras. This is your 0304. But luckily, since it was a convertible, you actually have a plug ready to go that you can just cut off and splice into this GT / V6 style connector. It does have 4 wires, so you will have to get power back to here or look up online which ones you need to cut, and then you can splice those into this connector. So then you'll be good to go there. On this trunk wiring harness that I cut out of the V6, I took everything out of that V6 and didn't break a single connector, so you guys have everything. But I did cut it under the rear seat because I was running low on time and I didn't have time to pull the center console out and pull the wiring harness from under the center console and then get under the dash and disconnect all the dash harness stuff too. So I opted to just cut it at the rear seat, and then you guys can utilize whatever wires you need to utilize, pull wires out of the harness if you want to, and then splice everything under the rear seat area where nobody's going to see it anyway. So just another thing that I thought would be useful to you guys and make this car ready to go. I did forget to pick up the interior trim clips for the actual trunk carpet stuff, so just be aware of that. You could probably go to your local junkyard and get those for like $5, so no big deal there. So just to point that stuff out. I think I did mention to you guys that we got the Ford Focus rear calipers on. Like I said, I will insert a video at the end of when we got them installed, so that way you guys can actually see kind of what they look like. I did leave the brakes unpainted. You guys might not have seen that video. I did shoot one video where I explained that I was going to leave everything the way it is. And my reason for that is not only does it make it to where I can get this car assembled faster and for sale and do less work on my part, but it also makes it more convenient on your guys' part, because if you were to wrap this car or paint it or something and you wanted the brake calipers a specific color, you can turn around and have them powder coated or paint them yourself. So that way I'm not wasting my time painting it a color that you guys don't want, and you guys can have it whatever color you desire. So makes it easy for me and makes it easy for you. So the only things I got left to do on the car before we dive into some of the parts and stuff is front brakes. Obviously we have to do, and then we have to bleed the brakes. I want to get fresh fluid through everything so that we make sure that there's no water or contaminants in the actual brake fluid that's been in the car for a long time. So fresh fluid and everything. I'm going to go underneath the dash still today, and I'm going to tidy up some of that wiring. I took a lot of detailed pictures from a video I was watching of a gentleman working on that stuff. And I also have my 01 convertible that I can pull in here, and then I can go back and forth between the two cars and make sure that everything's routed the way that it's supposed to be. And then I need to vacuum the carpet, shampoo the carpet, and then install the Kirky seats, and then that'll be completely done. And then the only other thing I have to do is install the hood, and then we're good to go. And I have the hood in here too that I'm going to show you guys in this video as well. I did pull the covers off the Kirky seats and I threw them in the wash, and I washed them the other day. I am going to hit them one more time with a vacuum. My nephew last night was playing around in the seat and got it a little bit dirty before I caught him, so no big deal. This seat I can quickly vacuum up and it'll look good as new. So anyway, there's that. I do have a couple of plastic trim panels, or shouldn't say trim panels, but like hardware and stuff that I'm going to include. Some of this stuff is still going to come out. Like I'm going to keep this fuel pump driver because you already have one in the car, and I need to use it for my other Mustang to make sure it runs. But anyway, there's a couple of things like that I'm going to include. Obviously you have your rivets for the bumper for when you're done painting it or whatever you're going to do. These are the screws that I use to install the hood rails. We have miscellaneous hardware that I got when I purchased the car. This is that passenger side tweeter I was talking about that I had, but I don't have the cover that actually covers the tweeter. So anyway, there's a bunch of miscellaneous wiring stuff, like they botched it, but the third brake light harness that's in here, which you're not going to end up needing because I already included that one, but it'll be in this box. There's an alternator wiring harness. There's a ground harness, the fuse box harness, but that one was cut like I showed you in another video. There's a couple of miscellaneous rubber seals, couple of panels in there, you know, one power steering line. So there's a few things in there that might become necessary for you guys later on. So it doesn't hurt to have it. And then real quick with these A-pillar trims, this one you might be able to fix if you're able to cut some plastic off and plastic weld it or hit it with some JB or something, and then you can reuse this one. This one, on the other hand, in my opinion, you could repair it and reuse it, but since they cut that whole lower portion off for this gauge pod instead of just drilling holes through it like they should have, I would get a whole new driver's side panel and then a new gauge pod. And if you're going to do the gauge pod style, just drill holes in here and leave the actual trim insert right here. So that way you have two spots that it's actually held on and it holds on tighter, instead of drilling holes like down here and here. You can leave that instead and then you'll be good to go. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So you can do what you want with that advice. These panels will go with it. So if you're good with plastic, you could fix them up and reuse them. So just that way you guys know. And then diving into the brake parts, because I don't know if I posted the brake parts video or not. First off, I got these pads. And I bought 2 sets of them because the description didn't say whether it came with a set of one front pads or if it was a set for both. And I couldn't tell from the pictures how big the box was. So I bought 2 sets. So I might just end up buying a whole new set of ATS calipers for another Mustang. If I end up finding one that needs brakes, that needs a fix and flip, I'll do that. Or I could ultimately return one set and get some money back or something. Or if you guys are interested, maybe selling the pads with it. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that other set, but so anyway, we got that. Here's the part number for it. Oh, darn it. Come on, work with me. There we go. Here's the bandrol bolts that you're going to need. They're both the same part number. And then here's the part number for the front stainless steel brake lines in the nice red. So I thought that was cool. Then here's the ATS calipers. I wrapped them up so that they wouldn't get dirty and took them out of the boxes so I didn't take up so much space, but just so you guys can kind of see them. But anyway, these are the bushings that I was talking about, and I actually learned from Repair Geek's YouTube video that that's what it was, because when I was talking about my other calipers about them being too big, I initially thought that they were just threaded excuse me, that they were just threaded into the brake caliper themselves and they didn't have a bushing in them. But then I learned about the bushing thing, so I could ultimately repurpose those other calipers for another build and rebuild those ones and do the S&S bushing kit. But I think I'm just going to sell those calipers for now because I really don't need them anyway. But I could probably keep them and reuse them for another project and just powder coat those ones. So I don't know what I'm going to do with those yet, but just to point that out, that's the bushings. And if you guys are interested in all the part numbers and stuff and want easy links, go to Repair Geek's YouTube channel video. I think I linked it in my second video. If I didn't, I will link it down in this third one as well. It's a very good detailed walkthrough of brake bias, has all the parts in the description, explains the differences between the Cobra R and the ATS calipers. So I really liked that. These are the Mishimoto lug nuts that we're going to install once we're completely done with all the brakes. And my reason for that is I didn't like the lug nuts that they have on it. They do work, but they're ugly. So I have these set on hand for another Mustang, so I decided I was going to use them. And the nice part about these is they're a nice aluminum with a knurled end so you can get your fingers on them on the racetrack or something if you wanted to spin them off by hand or spin them on by hand. And not only that, but they also are a locking style to where these are actually a 7-sided stud. So if somebody came up to your car and tried to steal your wheels, sure, they can get these ones off because they're stick-sided like normal, but they can't get any of these ones off because they're all 7-sided. So just so that way you guys know that. And then it comes with your specialty 7-sided socket, and it says 7-point on it. And this is your standard 19 mil that it comes with as well, with the covers on them to protect your wheels. So I thought that would match good with the black wheels and look a lot better than those rusty lug nuts that are on it right now. So and then I'm also going to clean the studs up real good, and I'll also put a little dab of anti-seize on them, just so that way you're not stretching the stud or nothing if you over torqued it or something. So just to let you guys know that. And then lastly, the only other thing that we got to show you guys is I have the hood in here as well. And I don't know if you guys heard it or not. I did shoot a video of it, but I don't know if I ended up deleting it or what ended up happening to it. But I did talk about how this is a Sunco feather carbon hood, and it does have a tiny bit of damage here, right here on this front driver's side corner. And you could easily fix this up with a little bit of fiberglass work to it and hitting it with the sander and stuff. So just to let you guys know that. But it is a very light hood. One person can easily lift this hood off the car. I would be careful so you don't go sailing and rip the hood in half if it's a windy day, but just so that way you guys know that. And then, like I also mentioned in another video that I don't know if you guys saw, is I have the 0304 Cobra hood that came on the car. It was on, well, I shouldn't say came on the car, but it was on the car on the Mustang and Fast Fords magazine shoot. And I have that hood, but it's in similar condition to where one of the studs is broke. So the easy way to fix it would be to cut the stud off and then drill that stud out and install a riv nut and then lock tight in a stud and use a nut just like all the other 3 bolts are going to be. So that way it looks factory when you install the hood. And then obviously it needs painted as well. So if you guys are interested in wanting that hood as well, I could probably include that hood for maybe an extra $300, or maybe just out of the goodness of my heart, I'll throw it in with the Mustang as well. So we'll kind of see what I end up doing, but just so that way you guys know about that hood. So that's all we got for the car so far. As I mentioned, we have the front brakes to do, which I'm hoping that part comes in today and we can get that done. Bleed the brakes, clean the carpet, install the seats, fix some of the wiring underneath. I also have the plastic bushings coming in for the brake pedal so it's not so floppy. And then clean the back panels, and the car should basically be done at that point, and I'm going to list it for sale at that point. So I'm also going to have a detailed walkthrough that you guys will see of all the paperwork that I have for the car, all the receipts that I've printed, all the receipts that I got with the car. I also have the original magazine that the car was featured in the original plastic. So, you know, just so that way you guys know that. I want to thank you guys very much for viewing these videos. I know this one was a very long one, and I might not get too many viewers that watch the full thing through. But if you guys are interested in this car, I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions about it, hit me in the comments. So thank you guys very much for viewing, and have a wonderful day. Alrighty, ladies and gents, we got one side done of the, what is it, Ford Taurus caliper, I think is what it is, on here with the upgraded piston on the back. Reused the stock pads that were in there because, as you can see, there's a lot of material. We greased the sliders up on each one. And then it came with new guide pins or sliders or whatever you want to call these, and new hardware on top and bottom. And it also came with a new banjo bolt with copper washers. Thanks, buddy. And then reused the dust cover on the bleeder. And then this also is the upgraded Cobra rotor. One thing I was wondering though as I was looking here is they have the bracket for the upgraded rotor on here, and I assumed that there would be a spacer in between this bolt, but there isn't. So I don't know, that seems a little weird and fishy to me, but you know, I don't know. there's not one, and it seems to be working, so we're going to leave it.
Here.
But anyway,
Here,
that's one side.
work.
My brother's working on the other side right now, and I'm going to go help him do that. So see you guys later.